Hey guys, welcome to the CO visit once again. Colin here, and I always have my trusty coffee. How's everyone doing on this fine Saturday morning, or whatever time it is or day it is where you are? I hope everyone's well. Thanks for clicking on this video. This is part 4 of my waking up video of how I woke up back in the day. I left off in the last video telling you guys about a national convention that we went to here in Honduras, and that was held in San Pedro Sula in the north of the country. It's the industrial capital, and how much of a nightmare that was, just logistically and everything. The weather there, because San Pedro Sula is very hot all year round. And there were around 50,000 people at that convention. Not all of those were Hondurans. With all the Honduran congregations at that time, we're talking about 2005, there may be 15,000. And then they invited people, and then people came also from neighboring countries, El Salvador, Guatemala, and in the end, there was just an enormous amount of people in this Olympic stadium in San Pedro Sula. It was really hard because, as I mentioned before in my previous video, how one of the things that I never liked was how difficult it was here to always, to be a witness, and how inconvenient it was, and the costs for the brothers to travel and to do all this stuff, because we had to pay for the bus. We had to contract a private bus to take our congregation all the way to San Pedro Sula, which back in those days, this was before the CA5 freeway was built. It was just a 2-lane highway at that time. And we're talking about at least an 8, 9, 10-hour drive. And so we had to get up. I remember, and my oldest daughter, who at that time was about a year old, and she was just learning to walk. We, had to get up at like 3 in the morning. And we got up, we left the first day of the convention. I remember it was, literally, I think we got up about it must have been like midnight or 1 in the morning, something like that. But we went full speed, nonstop. The first day of the convention, this was to save money, because majority of the brothers in Choluteca, in the southern zone, the polar opposite end of the country, are very poor. And so to save on 1 day of travel with this bus, we went the first day, the same day as the first day of the convention. So we had to get up at like 1 in the morning, or somewhere around there. I can't remember really now. It's been so long ago now. It's just all kind of a blur. It's all a fuzz in my brain. But, we traveled nonstop, and then you get there the first day of that convention, and you have to, sit there through this convention. It's just blazing heat. There's no shade. It's a completely open stadium. And it was, they had these tents set up on the outside, and like for first aid, because people were just dropping left and right. They were passing out, and there was just a nightmare because of the heat. And then we got put up by some brothers, a family of witnesses that were from Puerto Cortes, which is farther north than San Pedro. Puerto Cortes, there's a huge port, is on the very north coast of Honduras, and that's also a very big industrial port. Okay. So the brother this family that we were assigned to, he was like in the finances department or something like that. So we got, the bad luck of this guy was had to be the first one there at the convention, and he was the last one to leave. So after being all there all day, you're shot, you're tired, you're dehydrated, you're hot, And we got our little daughter who was just up and down, back and forth because she was walking. And this guy would, I mean, the convention would get done at what, 5 in the evening, and we wouldn't get out of there till like 8. We'd be sitting there waiting for him to get out, and then it was over an hour drive to Puerto Cortez. So we'd be getting there at 9 o'clock, and then this guy had to be up at like 4 in the morning. And I mean, it was just a nightmare. We were so exhausted. So what I was going to tell you guys was what really opened my eyes. This was a major crack in my foundation. And when I saw this, so one of the things I want to explain to you guys so you understand what I'm telling you is little backstory is that there was at that time, we're talking about 2005, all of the Central American countries, individually had a branch. They had a Bethel branch in every single country. So Guatemala, of course, there was a main branch in Mexico. Then there was, Guatemala, Belize. Belize is not considered part of Central America, even though geographically it's there, but it's not a part of that. Long story. Then Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama. Each individual one had a branch. And we had a branch overseer for each one. And of course, they had a whole staff and everything. And every branch office in each country, of course, was in a very upscale, posh, expensive neighborhood. The one in Honduras, I don't remember the exact address because I only went there once, but it was close to the American Embassy. So the American Embassy is on Avenida La Paz. That's the Peace Avenue. And, very, very upscale area. Mansion. It was in a mansion, basically. And I remember that on that same area, that same street, there was several embassies. There was the Mexican Embassy, which is still there. And I can't remember which other ones, but I remember the Mexican Embassy was there. So very upscale neighborhood. Lots of money, for real estate, of course. And our branch overseer was Werner Sinke, okay? And he was a German. He's a German. And big guy, and he always had these glasses on the end of his nose, and he was like, big guy. He was a nice guy. But you know what? He was a company man. And he was living the posh lifestyle there. They didn't ever go out of the branch office. They lived there. And the branch office, like I said, was a mansion. It was extremely luxurious on the inside. Very nice accommodations. Very nice area. And so Werner Sinke was the branch overseer, and that's what I put in the thumbnail for the picture. That's from a 1993 yearbook, okay, where they had an interview with Werner Sinke. Unfortunately, I could never find a picture of him. There's no picture of this guy anywhere. I even found his Facebook page, but last time it was updated was 2020. I don't even know if he's still alive. He might be dead. I don't know. He was an older gentleman at that time, so if he's still alive today, he'd be up there in age. And he was an interesting character. Anyway, long history of Germans in Central and South America, but I don't want to get into that. Anyway, Werner Sinke, wie geht's es Ihnen, Herr Werner? So I remember when I was there, and we pretty much spent, still to this day, I have no idea what that convention was about. I don't remember what the topic was. I don't remember the theme of it. Nothing, because we spent the whole time outside. There was no way we were sitting on the inside of that stadium with the 1-year-old daughter who was just all over the place, like hyperactive. She was learning to walk. Like I said, Donna never crawled. She just went right to walking from nothing. And so we had this little mattress, this little tiny mattress and some blankets, and we spent the whole time outside of the stadium, below the stadium. And we're just with her up and down, and my ex-wife was just sick, and it was just chaos, and she was having like these nervous breakdowns and anxiety, and it was a nightmare. So one day we were walking around and we were walking up and down, walking back and forth, and Vernasinke came by, and we started talking because we had met a few times before. I had gone to the ranch once in Tegucigalpa, and he was kind of like, "Oh, what you doing outside? What's going on?" And I was like talking to him, and I said, I can't. This is a nightmare. I said, we're so tired, and I got this little girl, and she's walking around, and he's like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "Yeah, come with me. Come with me." He's like, I'll take you to a little room. You can just go in there and stay there, and yeah, it's okay. And so when we were going to find this little room, what happened was he said, "Could you just hold on for a second? I need to talk to someone real quick. Just wait." And he opened. So what they had was under the stadium, around the stadium, there are these little offices all over, and there was like an administrative office and all that. So in the administrative office is where all the coordinators and the speakers and everybody from the Honduras, the Tegucigalpa, Bethel branch, the Bethel branch were inside of that little room. That's where they were set up. And I had never seen that before. I'd never, seen like the administration of a convention. And when he told me just wait outside and just for a second, I'll be right back. And he opened the door and he went in, he left the door open. And I was like, it was like, literally guys, it was like Wizard of Oz when Dorothy pulls back the curtain and the wizard's back there, and I'm just like, huh? And I got closer and I went up to the door. And I just stood there because he was in there for like 5 minutes. He was talking to somebody, and I'm just looking around, and all these people from the coordination of this, there are elders and there's circuit overseers in there, and basically they've got like a TV set up inside of this room. They've got air conditioning, and they've got chairs set up all around, and it's nicely decorated, and this table in the middle. This is what I remember the most. This big like folding table, and it had a tablecloth on it and everything, full of food. I mean, luxury, just like fruit and these big arrangements, and everyone's like sitting around shooting the breeze, eating, drinking. There was a little refrigerator over in one corner, and people are drinking sodas, and they're cracking jokes, and they're talking, and they're eating. And you couldn't even hear, like, there was one guy like over in the corner, and he was kind of like listening to the program and watching. They had like a camera system, and he was like watching what's going on. And I think they would, oh no, next person's, hey, 5 minutes, next guy, and they were, one guy was like monitoring the stage, right? And here these guys are. You got people outside like us suffering, people passing out, people just miserable, right? And here they are. They're not even paying attention to the program. No one's even listening to it. They're just having a good old time, having the time of their lives, eating all this expensive food at the expense of the brothers, because that's all with donations. It's all with donations. And I'm sitting here going, already, by that time, I was in my mid-20s, 20 plus years of how important it was to pay attention at the conventions, pay attention at the meetings, take notes, do this, do that, having those responsibilities. And here are these jokers from the branch, which I never liked those people anyway because of that, because they were just living the posh life. And here the poor Honduran minions, they're the ones that have to be out there in the stadium under the sun, putting up with all that bullshit. And here these people were just living this good life and just living it up, laughing it up, joking, just having conversations, eating all this food, kicking their feet up, And I was just like, wow, wow. Why is this even permitted? Why? And this is, guys, this is not just isolated. It's not just an isolated happening. This is the Bethel life everywhere you go in the world. And you've all heard, if you guys follow, for example, the JT and Lady C's channel, the critical exjw, critical thinker, and all of that, and other people who are Bethelites, You hear all about those stories, the keg parties, and I've told them too, because I went there once and I saw that when I went over to England. It's not isolated. You know, so yeah, well maybe that was there. Someone got, if that's not in all that. Yes, it is. Yes, it is, because it's a huge coincidence that people on such, I mean, just different, totally different countries, different continents, all tell the same stories. It is part of the JW culture. Once you get on a certain level, you're outside of the bubble. You're not a part of, you know, you got the whole like lower class, working class that live inside of the dome. That's a whole nother life. The rank and file, that's like the foot soldiers, like in the armed forces. You've got the infantry, and then you've got the officers, and you got the officers club, and those of you who are soldiers, you know what I'm talking about. It's a whole nother situation. It's a whole nother reality. And now I understood why COs had the attitude that they did. Like, yeah, I don't got to do that. Here, come with me. Just, you know, and they could bypass all that stuff. That's why they were not held to the same standards as the rank and file minions were. And that is the reality in the Jehovah's Witnesses. If that's that way, just imagine how the governing body is, their meetings and their little get-togethers and all of that, just like Ray Franz talked about. Same thing. It's everything but a group of spirit anointed men that will be ruling in heaven one day with Holy Spirit. No, none of that. This is a bunch of men. This is a bunch of human, mortal men that have created this whole organization. And if you are lucky enough to get to that level, then guess what? You're going to live it up. Just like these branch overseers, just like governing body members and all these other, their helpers and all this stuff. Living the good life, not paying taxes, getting luxurious housing accommodations, free food, all this other stuff, just like Tony, right? In his Watchtower Bible and Tract Society sponsored and financed luxurious townhome in a gated community out there in North Carolina, right? While most brothers and sisters are struggling just to pay the mortgage every month or pay rent. That opened my eyes. That was a big deal. So, you know, that was a big thing. So that was just one experience. So after years and years of all that kind of bullshit, because I also found out about being a need grader. Being a need grader is actually, when you get to those countries, you're not really needed. Okay, there's a difference. There's a definite difference between you and missionaries that come from Gilead, that come from Bethel. Okay, they didn't ask you to be there. And if you're going to leave, or if you're, you know, they're not going to miss you. They're not going to hold you back. You know, it's kind of like, hey, I didn't ask you to come here, you know. And if you start having problems, it's like, hey, well, you know, go back to the States. You know, they're not going to help you. Need graders get zero help. You know, and everyone talks, oh, be a need grader, and they encourage that. But at the same time, you're on your own. You start having any kind of problems, or you need help, even with like my situation where, you know, I thought that the branch would help me with the immigration process. Nah. Nope. It was like, nope, you're on your own. You're on your own. So what ended up happening eventually, fast forward, I'm going to try to get to the point here. We did end up going back to the States. My wife was very sick at that time. My, you know, now ex-wife. I want to make sure I clarify that, because my wife monitors these videos. And we didn't know what was going on. She had lots of problems. She had psychological problems and was having health problems, and we didn't know what was going on. So I decided I needed to get her back to the States. I had to leave. I was gone for a year. I went back to Minnesota. This is around 2006, 2007. And yeah, about 2007, 2006, somewhere in there. It's all foggy. And went through the process to get her the residence. I had to go back because it was just at that time that was the procedure. You had to go solicit from your country where you're from. So I had to go back there, get myself established. I went back to uh, living with my folks. I found them and I told them that I needed help. I need to come back, and so I ended up moving in with them for a little bit and started working and went through the whole nightmare of the whole immigration process. It's not easy doing it the legal way either. It's possible, not easy though. It's a huge expense. They put you through hell, and it just a lot of stuff. Anyway, long story short, we ended up getting back finally. And all of that got put on hold because lo and behold, in a little moment of a slip up, she got pregnant again. And a year later, in 2008, Cosette was born. She was born in Minnesota. So that happened. Life happens, right? Oh well. And so we kind of, all her health problems got put on hold for that year because the pregnancy and all of that. And the pregnancy was extremely difficult with Cosette. It was very risky, and she had lots. I mean, we spent almost every day of that 9 months in the hospital because she got like the preeclampsia or something like that, where she was like throwing up every single day. She couldn't even keep water down. It was horrible. And so finally, thank God that Cosette was born. And, I never got to see Donna born because in Honduras, they don't permit that. They don't permit you to go in because she was born in a public hospital. They don't let the men inside to see the birth. So I did get to see Cosette, and that was a miracle. That was absolutely unbelievable. It's something undescribable. I mean, you can't describe what that feels like to witness that and be there. It's just a miracle of life. It really is. It was so special. And so Cosette was born. 3 months later, after she was born, my wife, who was still, we kind of went back to her health problems, what was going on. They ended up finding out she had breast cancer. That's what it was. She had breast cancer. They suspended breastfeeding immediately, and just, it was a whirlwind. It was horrible. I was 28 years old at the time. She was 29. She's 1 year older than me. 28 years old, and my ex-wife was 29 when she was diagnosed with breast cancer. And literally the next day, our life completely was turned upside down on its head. It was just a whirlwind. We all of a sudden, they were like, okay, they called me up when I got the results of the biopsy back that they had done. And they literally said, okay, you need to come to Duluth. We were living in Elk River. You can look on a map if you want. We were living in Elk River at the time, Elk River, Minnesota. A little bit north of Minneapolis. Very nice town. And they said, this is what happened. It's positive. This is what it is. And you need to come to Duluth tomorrow. You're going to meet with the oncologist. You're going to meet with the surgeon, the anesthesiologist. And then the next day, she's going to have her surgery. And then it was just like boom, 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 boom. And literally, you're like, your head's just spinning. We were in a Spanish-speaking congregation at that time. Okay, we were in a Spanish-speaking congregation. And then after all of that happened, after her 34 chemotherapy treatments, which was horrible, very traumatizing. She had a radical mastectomy on her left breast, and so she had a scar from her back, almost like her shoulder blade, all the way to her sternum, to her right here. It was huge, and they had these metal staples, and then she had a bag with almost I would say a couple feet of tubing inside of her to drain the all the swelling and the pus and all that stuff. And so for after that, the first couple of months of her recovery, she couldn't do anything. I had to help her with everything: eating, bathing, going to the bathroom, everything, because she just like could not move. I mean, it was terrible. And then she had to start doing physical therapy to get mobility back in her arm, because they took out like some lymph nodes from her arm. It was horrible. And then I got these two little girls. I've got a brand new newborn daughter. I had to quit my job, and terrible stress. I was getting depressed. I had anxiety. it was just overload, and we were not living close to my family. My parents weren't really around. My dad was there a little bit in and out, but then my dad, after right around that time is when he separated from my mother. They got divorced. He went into a tailspin. He was, because he was drinking and he was having all kinds of problems. My dad tried to commit suicide. And with all those problems I was having with my ex-wife, with the cancer and all that, my kids, I had to deal with what was going on with him. I had to go over there. He called me because he had taken this bottle of pills, and I had to rush over there. I had to leave the girls alone with her, and she couldn't take care of them. I had to go take my dad to the emergency room, pick him up. He was on the floor. And my other two brothers, they lived 2 hours north in Grand Rapids, Minnesota. They didn't want to get involved. They were already shunning my parents because they weren't going to meetings or anything like that. And then they were getting divorced, and because my dad's drinking. So they left all that on me. And it was just overload. It was overload. I was starting to just lose my mind. I was literally getting sick. I was depressed. I was anxious. I was terrified. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what to do. And just trying to keep afloat. I was, barely getting like a little bit of unemployment. Thankfully, we had Minnesota Care, which is the healthcare. And because of the two girls, I got a lot of benefits because of that, which kept us afloat. And we got a very good rebate at the end of the year from, the taxes and all of that, which was like, at that time it was $6,000 or $7,000 because of, having the children, and I was the only one working, and, we got a lot back, and that helped out a lot. So we kept afloat, but it was just, everything was on me. Everything was on my shoulders. And I started taking medication. I was going to therapy to kind of figure out, because I couldn't handle it. Literally, I couldn't handle it, guys. And the congregation wasn't helping. I didn't have any privileges. I wasn't doing anything because I couldn't even, barely make it to meetings or do anything like that. And, they weren't real. They were kind of like had a brother, like to keep an eye on us and check up on us. But they were just like staying out of it, And so I went to some therapy, went to a psychiatrist, started taking antidepressants. And then they put me on also Xanax for the anxiety. And it was bad. It was bad, guys. A couple of things happened to me at that time, okay? And I'm gonna, I'm not ashamed at all to tell you guys about this. This is the reality. This happens to a lot of people. It happened to me. I don't think it was really my intention, because it just happened. Those kind of medications, are highly addictive. And also, my wife, after she, got out of the hospital and, was doing the physical therapy and all that, they prescribed to her not oxycodone. It was hydrocodone, which is pretty much like prescription cocaine. It's an opiate. It's this big pill. I can't remember how much. It's 1,000 milligrams of like acetaminophen, like Tylenol, and then it's got a percentage of whatever the opiate is, and it's very. ¿Qué pasó? Huh? And very, very addictive. And I think what happened was that, Ativan, I was already popping those, like, because you would take, or the Ativan or Xanax, whatever one it was one of those two. The first, I should tell you, the first experience I ever had with Xanax was when, right after Cosette was born, I performed a vasectomy in Minnesota. I got a vasectomy. I didn't want to have any more children. I was clear on that. Okay. I was clear on that. I was done. I didn't want to have any more. And in the future, I didn't want to have any other issues or get involved with someone and get, trapped with another kid. I was like, no, I'm done. So I went in, did that whole procedure, went in, had a consultation with the doctor, and I was really, really, really nervous about it. And so the day of the procedure, before the procedure, like the day before, he prescribed me 5 Xanax pills, these little tiny white pill. And he was like, take all 5 of them before you come in to do the, and he said, you got to get like a Uber. Well, there was no Uber back then. It was whatever it was. There was a taxi service. And he said, you got to get someone to drive. You can't drive. You're going to be high as a kite. He said, take this, but it's going to help you to calm you down. And like, you're just going to kind of be out of it. And I took that, and that's the first time in my life, guys, I had ever taken, even though it was prescription, but any type of like mood or mind altering drug like that. And it was literally like you were out of your body, and I was watching myself walk all over the place. It was like literally, it was not me. It was like I was watching a movie, and I was, talking, and I was watching myself. I was totally floating outside of my body. It was an out of this world experience. And we did that whole procedure and all of that. And then, I ended up getting, so I had that experience where it was like, whoa, that stuff was wild. And I ended up getting the Xanax for my anxiety that I was having because of that whole situation and everything I had on my shoulders. And then because my wife had those, she had, and you know what, they prescribed her a bottle. It was about this big. There was like 50, there was like 50 or 100 of these hydrocodone pills, and I had no idea what they were. I just thought, oh, it's a painkiller, it's a analgesic. I didn't have any idea about that stuff. And so when she had those pills, and she could get they give her like 5 refills on every one, and it was like, I just thought it was like taking a Tylenol or something like that. And so I'm already taking Xanax, and I started like one time because I was like, oh, had a headache, I'm dealing with all this stuff, and she's got these pills right there. I'll just take one of those. She doesn't need all of those, and boom, took the pill. And the first time, I mean, it was literally like Tony Montana, the say hello to my little friend. I was just, and I was just, oh man, this elation, this energy, oh my goodness. It's hard to explain, but it was just elation. It was just energy, and I was, at that time I discovered YouTube. We had a laptop, not laptop, but a desktop computer, and I was on there, and I was listening to music and dancing, and oh man. So I started taking those, and next thing you know, it was, I was popping Xanaxes and 10 hydrocodones every single day, and this went on for quite a while. Until I just finally, they wouldn't give us any more refills or anything like that. And it just, I wasn't going to go look for it illegally or anything like that. But the withdrawals I had from that, when we just stopped, it was really bad. It was really bad. Like that, you see that in the movies, like the shaking, I didn't sleep for I think 3 days. I was just just literally trembling. I had to go sleep on the couch and just rocking back and forth and shaking and just, seeing things. And it was total delirium tremens, type stuff. It was horrible. So I had that experience as well. Well, what ended up happening basically there was when I stopped that, I started drinking too. I started drinking right away to kind of replace all of that and try to calm down. And of course, that was just spiraling out of control as well. And it was going really bad. Everything was going bad. Everything was going downhill. My life was spiraling out of control. And I remember, like I told this before, I made a video in the past that was called the phrase that finally woke me up. And interestingly, as usually happens, what will wake up even the most indoctrinated witness is having an extreme humiliation and disappointment from somebody in the congregation, someone you trust in. And when you have that happen, that will usually do it. And it did it for me. And so we were, at that time, there's we moved several times. Okay. So we were in this other congregation. It was still a Spanish congregation. And there was a brother kind of assigned to us in that congregation also to keep an eye on us and what was going on. And he was an American brother, but he spoke Spanish. And we really counted on him for a lot of stuff and to help us and to, and one time I remember when we were coming out of the meeting, it was a Thursday night meeting, and I went and talked to him in the parking lot. I was just about to leave, and I needed some gas money. Needed a 20 spot. And I asked him if he could spare $20. And I'll never forget this as long as I live too. And I thank him for this because it helped me to wake up. He just shook his head and he kind of looked down and he took the money out and he handed it to me. And then he like pulled it back and he said, this were his exact words. When is this going to stop? And he was just like fed up, like irritated. And literally for a second, I was just taken aback. I was like, what? Did he just say what I think he just said? And then he gave it to me. And I was like, and I said, you know what, brother? I said, you're absolutely right. This is going to stop. I said, it's going to stop today. We left. I got in my car. We left. And after that, we ended up moving back north to my hometown of Grand Rapids. That was the last time. We're talking about 2009 or 10, right around there. 2009 or 2010, right in that area. Last time I ever went physically to a Kingdom Hall there. Never went back. That to me destroyed me emotionally. This was an elder. This was someone I trusted in. They were supposed to be our shepherds. They're supposed to guide the flock. They're supposed to leave the 99 behind and find the one that's misguided or got lost. And when the shepherd found me, what did he do? He stomped on me. He didn't care. He reduced my whole life, my whole suffering, my ex-wife that was terribly sick. I was sinking financially. I was dealing with addiction, trying to, raise these two little girls, a newborn baby by myself with no support from anybody. And he just reduced it to, when is this going to stop? Because he was irritated because once again, I was asking him for gas money. Like, get your act together, man. Go get a job, go do something, stop bothering us. That's all of that translated to me. So when we moved back to Grand Rapids up north, I continued drinking until I just got sick of myself. I got tired of it, and I checked myself into a program there, a center that's called Northland Recovery Center. And this is where I met an angel in my life. I still have contact with him to this day. Okay? He was a, addiction therapist, a substance abuse therapist. In the past, he was a drug dealer, got into all this stuff, and then cleaned up his life, went to school, became a therapist, got licensed in therapy, drug addiction therapy, alcoholism, all that kind of stuff. And he was my therapist. So we were like, you had part of it in group therapy, and then part was also one-on-one with him. And at that time, guys, even though all of that happened, I was still in like JW mode. Even though I wasn't going to meetings hardly, we would once in a while, we would call into the hall and they would hook us up over the telephone. We would listen because I had a convenient excuse with my wife, but I wasn't going anymore. So I remember this one day, and this was pivotal as well. This was definitely pivotal. And I thank Mark. His name is Mark. I thank him to this day. And even now when we talk, I still thank him. Because he broke down and destroyed whatever was left of my JW indoctrination. Even in the therapies, I was still trying to quote scriptures from the Bible and spew out, that pre-recorded watchtower bullshit about, our hope in this and everlasting life and what the Bible says. And he's listening to this. It's like, serious, you're still preaching to me? So one time he told me, he said, hey, he stopped me. He's like, hold on a second. Because I went into my pre-recorded JW mode, right? He said, let me get this straight. He said, if you're telling me that you're the only true religion, this Jehovah God chose your people, Jehovah's Witnesses, You have the only truth, the truth. You have this hope of living in a paradise. You're going to get resurrected. You're going to see your loved ones again. You're gifted and blessed with the only true interpretation of this Bible. And you have this New World Translation that has the only truth in it. And you were revealed to you God's only true name, Jehovah, and all this stuff. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, okay, so if that's the case, why are you trying to kill yourself? Why are you here? Why are you so miserable? And I was just like, I literally had, my mind went blank. He cut right through, speaking of the sword of the truth, he cut right through all that indoctrination bullshit. Like these people who comment on my videos here and just spew out the same stuff over and over and over again. No thinking going on. He got right through that. I had no answer for him. Why was I there? If I had all this truth, if I was so blessed to be a part of this organization and I had the only true God, why was I in so much pain? Why was I so miserable? And you know why I was? I knew exactly what the answer was. All you Jehovah's Witnesses out there know exactly what the answer to that question is. It's the organization that causes us that misery and that pain. And the way that I gotten treated by that brother. And the fact that we were shunning people, and my parents and my brothers were now shunning me. This happened years ago. I was still a witness and I was getting shunned. And you know what I did? Right there in front of my therapist, I just broke down and sobbed like a little girl. Just sobbed. Just like that time I sobbed in the apartment after I had gotten divorced and was by myself, after I had disassociated myself from the witnesses. Checkmate. Gotcha. That was it. Because if all of that were true, I wouldn't be sitting in a recovery center. So here's a guy, a therapist, an atheist, who opened my eyes. Now I understand why the organization doesn't want its members seeking professional help. And no, it's not what you're thinking. It's not because they're going to try to get you out of the truth. They're going to try to convince you. They're going to fool you and all this. No, they never said, I've been to several therapists. Never once have they ever tried to mess with my faith that I had at that time or try to convince me to not believe in God or anything like that. Not in the least. The only thing they did do was make me think. They made me come to my own conclusions and admit an answer that I already knew for years. I already knew it. Well, after that, when I got myself back on track, stopped drinking, graduated from that program, got my little coin with the 4 agreements and all of that, we ended up making the decision to come back to Honduras. This was in beginning of 2011. 2011. We came back to Honduras, started over again, started from scratch. And the rest is history, guys. There it is. So, once I came back to Honduras, I was not active as a witness anymore. Once in a while, we would go to meetings on and off, but I was not really practicing anymore. I wasn't, didn't preach, didn't really do anything. I was just off. And so by 2014, when I got divorced, we got separated, and I disassociated myself. And here we are. We came full circle. Hey, I know everyone's out there. I can hear the cheers out there all over the world. Colin finally finished a story. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, guys, those things hurt. All of those things hurt. But you know what? I thank the universe for Mark Anderson, my therapist. What a savior. I singularly, for the most part, I singularly credit him for being the one that truly opened my eyes. Because I'll never forget those words. If you have all of these things and God and you're the only true people and paradise and this and that and the only truth and the best Bible and this and that, why are you in so much pain? What are you doing here? Wow. Touche, my friend. Touche. Thanks for watching, guys. There's my story. Well, now in the following CO visit videos, we can get back to our regular scheduled programming. Thanks for clicking on the video. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Won't cost you a thing. Thanks for being on this journey with me. I put some very personal things out there. Treat me kindly. I'll see you in the next CO visit.